So I've got my baseboard here that I'm going to be putting the wood on top of. And then engaging the knife and using another piece of wood to beat down on the top. The nice thing with having such a good sized blade is obviously it's given me plenty of room to split onto. So I've got all of this end here that I can beat down with this other piece of wood and bite it through. This is going to be a little bit of a tougher part. I've got quite a notable knot in this wood as I go through. I try to avoid that. That said, when I'm splitting, if I get it, I get it. So now here comes the knot. And that's really nice to see. That's a pretty hard job actually for a knife to go through a knot of that size with this technique. Okay, so that was some pine that we just split there. What I'm now going to do is take a piece of birch, which in these regions is actually a little bit of a denser wood, and we'll see how that goes. That's nice, I'm pleased with that. I've got a good positive grip on this handle. Obviously it's a large dimension knife, but using what is quite a forceful technique, I'm feeling quite a good and nice amount of control on the blade. So we see this wood splitting down really nicely. So now that I've split my wood into some reasonable sizes, obviously as I'm covering firelight and things like that, which I'm not going to go into today, we need to ensure that the smaller our wood, the easier it is to actually start our fires with it. And we're actually using the volume to surface area principle there of understanding what it takes to actually to get a fire and build it. Now, even though I've got some relatively fine pieces of wood here, you know, depending on the environment or what's happening, I might have to split this down even further. And one of the things we actually do to sort of to process wood down to an even better level than this is making what we call feather sticks. So feather sticks are fairly simple things to construct. All I'm going to do is make some thin shavings on this actual split piece of wood, and they then become a much finer material to actually set light to. So I'm just going to do one real quick. I'm going to move this out of the way. Right, we're done with that base block. So what I'm actually doing, I think for any of you guys watching in America, you would say these are curly cues, is I'm just running down the grain of the wood and just taking a very thin shaving. And guys, I must actually say this knife feels really good for this activity. This kind of curve in the back third for the finer work really goes nicely into this. Using a straight edge knife, which is what I normally tend to work with, there's a little bit of finesse on this. This actually feels very nice for this job. And you see what I'm doing is rotating the wood bit by bit, so I'm getting many different surfaces to shave on instead of just the same plane the whole time. Okay, I think that'll do. So what you'd be looking at doing is obviously catching this much finer material with a flame, and that would then sort of be burning through into the stick, helping it ignite. So again, that was pine. Let's just pick a piece of birch to go with. I think this one's going to be good. Now on that last one, I was actually holding in this foreguard position, actually in advance of the handle. This time I'm just going to hold just the handle itself. And obviously in this environment that's far more preferable for me just now because of the heat conduction of just the metal blade. You see I'm just wearing these very thin gloves right now. I'm never going to come into contact with bare metal in this environment. So I always have my liner gloves on. But now I'm just going to see how I get on with this grip. A little further back. So exactly the same thing again. I'm hoping that you can see this okay. I'm getting really bad sun reflection off this camera lens. Again, that's going very nicely. The birch feels a little different, as I said just previously. It's a denser wood. That actually feels really nice using a knife like this. And I'll be honest, I'm pleasantly surprised at that. That's really, really good. Okay, so again you can see exactly the same principle, known as a feather stick. So successfully batoned with this knife, splitting our wood down and then using the feather stick. I also know that we dressed the game with it a little bit earlier on the fish, so it worked very nicely for that. So let's go and do some slightly heavier work out in the forest. So